Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics. Good evening, Mr. Dunning. It's the Coventry Corridor calling. Corridor to Mr. Dunning. Where are you?
Mr. Dunning is here. Hello, mate.
There he is.
How you doing?
I'm sorry. Mr.
What?
Dunning. Mr.
Yes.
Dunning in. Oh, please. This'll up our YouTube ratings enormously.
What?
Well, you're sporting the not only facial hair, but beautifully styled facial hair, mate. Where's that? How old is that tash? That's straight from the 70s, isn't it?
Wow. Okay. So what we're establishing week by week is that I can't do anything without it amusing you in some way, shape, or form.
Well, it's about time it was my turn.
that is a very good point. Well, yes, I am indeed sporting what can only be described as well, it's a porno tash, isn't it? It's a 70s like
Magnum.
It is Magnum PI. That's probably what I should have gone for, actually.
Yeah. You went for the porn, but you should have gone for Magnum, shouldn't you, really?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a link in there somewhere as well. Anyway, yes, no, it is me, I promise you. It's not Tom Selleck. It's not Freddie Mercury. It is me, Sam. I am here with my recently grown under nasal appendage. Is that the right? It's either way.
After porn moustache, anything's better.
Well, yeah, that's true. So the explanation time. I've been doing a bit of immersive dinner theatre. I've got a bit more coming up next week as well. And the characters I've been playing have allowed me to have a real moustache rather than having to get the eyeliner out and draw one on. So I thought, do you know what? To save having some fake looking coloured in top lip, I'm going to go the whole hog. I'm going to make it look real, albeit at the expense of having the piss taken, clearly.
I'm sorry, mate. No, I'm not blowing smoke up your jacksie, but in a strange kind of way. You may not want to hear this. Kind of suits you, mate. There's not many people can get away with a tash, and you're doing it very well.
It's very kind of you, mate. My dad has always had a moustache. In fact, I think I can probably count on one hand the times that I've seen him without a moustache. So I'm probably looking slightly more like my father at the moment. But you saying that I won't want to hear it. My other half probably won't want to hear you saying that it looks good either, because I'm pretty sure she's not a fan. But yes. Anyhow, so that's what I've been doing. I've been busy growing a moustache and doing some immersive dinner theatre that required me to have said moustache. I'd ask you what you've been up to, mate, but let's face it, it's probably quite a repetitive answer at this stage.
Well, it's soon not to be. This is our last week. Well, we've just finished our last week of rehearsals in the studio, and we make the transition to the theatre next week, which is really exciting. I mean, it is time now to, take it out the studio and get it on. And it's amazing because, as you know, and lots of people listening will know that, once you get in the theatre, things change. It'll start to become a different entity, and all that work will suddenly go, this is why we're doing this. This works. We're going to have to change that or whatever. So I always find it really, some people don't like technical rehearsals, but I really enjoy them. I like to see what it is going to look like, and throw sound in, throw lights in, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a way, it's the first time that the whole team come together, really, isn't it? So up to this stage, you're doing your rehearsals, and you might have a choreographer in your case, certainly fight choreographer or movement choreographer or whatever you want to call them, someone in charge of that sort of thing, and you'll have your director. But this is the point where actually some of those unsung heroes sort of step in and go, right, you've done a great job bringing the story to life. We're going to throw some lights at it, throw some sound on it, and some staging and some props and whatever else, and really kind of not polish it, but just add to it and let it grow and really make it complete.
Yeah, it's the next dimension, isn't it? It just lifts it all one step further. I mean, and as you say, they are the unsung heroes, because Tech Week is obviously for everyone, but it is when we've had a sound guy walk in occasionally and listen to the rehearsals and go, okay, this is where that music's going to be, that needs that whatever. Lighting guys come in and sort of looked at the shape of things and gone, okay, I'm going to have to light this part of the stage or whatever. And this is particularly interesting because I think I've said before, but the risk of repeating myself, this is in the round. So that has a whole new load of technical issues that the guys are going to be interested in. So it becomes very much their week to get their stuff right. And by the end, as you say, it always lifted into another dimension. So becomes, as you say, a complete team of people then. Everybody gets to put the show on. So,
do you know what I think we should do, Drew? I think we should raise a glass, to the unsung heroes of the theatres, or the lesser remembered, I suppose, the sort of the hidden stars of theatre.
That's a nice one.
Lights, and all those people that go together to really bring things to life that perhaps aren't the names on the posters or the people taking the bows at the end. So cheers to them, and cheers to everyone listening and watching. Thank you all for joining us as ever.
Lovely to have you with us.
Oh, that's good. And I guess so you obviously you've been in rehearsal and it's up on its feet, but you haven't been rehearsing in the space. And certainly I think that, or not the fully furnished space.
Not the fully fledged ring. No. We've had they've got marvelous facilities at the Belgrade and Coventry. So I'll sing their praises, but we've had a mock-up of the boxing ring and the surround that is our stage. In essence, that's where everything takes place, or 80% of the play takes place in the ring. Not all boxing, so we change the appearance of the ring from time to time. Things are added that it becomes other spaces, but it's important, particularly when the title Fighting Irish, that it is a play about boxing, but it's also about other conflicts that take place that can be reflected in the boxing ring. Well, there is a considerable amount of boxing in the play. Some fabulous, as you said, boxing, choreography, but it's been very, very well done. The writer is an ex-boxer. The director has boxing experience. I did a little bit as a schoolboy. A couple of the other guys have done some as schoolboys. So there's a little wealth of knowledge, but that's not to say that we haven't all had to go back and learn it again and learn, about it, so that we're all on the same hymn sheet, as I was saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, the only reason I say that is because I think looking back at doing Panto, the first sort of week of rehearsals or whatever, when I was doing it, we were in a side room to the main theatre, because we weren't in the main theatre yet, because number one, they still had other shows in, and they couldn't sort of set it. And then for a period, they were getting all the set in, and it just, albeit you might have been in the right space or whatever, I think it almost it opens it up, it makes it alive. All of a sudden you have to adjust to being in a bigger space, or being in a space where you might have a higher ceiling, or silly little things like that, but you do have to adjust. And certainly for you guys, as you were saying, not you specifically, because I imagine you're not doing a lot of the boxing yourself, but these guys are having to make things bigger and move them onto the new space, and how it's sort of grown, and then thinking about things like that. So it really does develop very, very quickly. And you guys have to adjust performance-wise to then go, right, this is what's changed. This is what I have to do. So it's not only perhaps they're learning new skills or they're new things that you have to deal with, but it's also adjusting what you've already set in place.
It's very interesting because just so we knew what we were going to be dealing with, give us an idea so we could go back to the rehearsal room, we took the cast went down to the workshop to where they built the ring so that they could put it together. see what it was going to look like, and obviously test everything out, because it's got to be like a boxing ring. It's got to be, you've got to be able to go against the ropes, you've got to be able to get in and out, etc., etc. And it was very interesting going down there going, oh, wow, you know, so if you do climb in the ring, you've got to move the rope, you've got to then think about timing entrances and exits, because you can't just get in and out. No. Also, this ring is sunk into the stage, so it becomes very much like a Colosseum feel to it.
Yeah.
So you are stepping not only, you know, not just into the ring, but you're stepping down into this. So you've got to change all the moves and all your way of getting in and out. So we're all sort of very adept now that ducking under ropes and, you know, or holding ropes up, letting boxers in and out.
Yeah.
So it was when we saw the ring and went, wow, we've all seen boxing rings. All of us have seen boxing rings on television. But when you're faced with one and you have to get in and out of one, and also you watch the guys boxing and we're in the ring, you know, in a boxing match, it just lifts it, you know, 100, 200%. You know, and you go, right, now we know where we are. We haven't seen that for about 2.5 weeks now, so we're looking forward to seeing it again in situ. But it really did change the way that we did move around, and change the way that we saw and heard the play, which is, you wouldn't have thought that would make that much difference, but it's extraordinary how much. Yeah, you do know, but I mean, it's extraordinary how much an extreme thing like that. I mean, I've never done a play in a boxing ring before.
No.
You know, and so I haven't done a play in the rounds for many years. So it is a whole new ball game. That's the wrong analogy, but it's a whole new new boxing.
I think that's called a low blow, mate, if that's coming into play, and I don't think that's allowed.
Oh, nice one. Oh, the boxing analogies are coming out. Yeah. But,
that's about my knowledge of boxing done now, though.
Is that it?
So let's move on to something else. But no, I think it's really interesting you talk about, because, and this is going to sound like a weird connection, but you're talking about some of the lads and all of you guys having to adjust and learn new things and sort of adapt. And yes, I have interesting facial hair at the moment, but in a way, I suppose that's also something new and something I've had to do to adapt to play certain characters, and it's something within our vocation very much that we do have to learn new skills or change our appearance or do certain research, or basically make some fairly substantial, albeit temporary, changes to be able to keep doing certain things, or to be able to continue with a role, or to be able to even audition for a role. I mean,
that's very true.
Yeah, I mean, something springs to mind, and I cannot remember. And you'll either hate me for this, or I can't remember if we've mentioned it before on the show. But I know that you had to do a very specific audition where you had to embrace the side of yourself that you've certainly never needed to before. Do you know where I'm going with this? Do you remember?
I'm trying to remember.
Do you remember you had to play a four-legged friend?
Oh, you're talking the cat one.
I am referencing an audition that you did where you were a cat.
The cat self-tape, yes, way back during the time of the welcome guest, and I was doing, it was for a short film. And I think we've glossed over this, but at one point, I had to play.
I'm not letting you gloss over it now, mate. Now this is it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we with self-tapes becoming more and more popular, useful, and necessary. And as you know, you asked to do a self-tape, and you try wherever possible, or if you're asked to wear the right clothes, to give them an idea, because with the unwelcome guests, sometimes that was the only time they were going to see you. We weren't able to do face-to-face auditions. No. It wasn't like you could go in to do an audition and say, okay, could you come back next time wearing, an overcoat and a trilby so we can see what you look like as a character. So that was your one shot at getting it right. And in this instance, the character, he dresses up as a cat, because he likes to be a cat. He wants to be a cat. And there's nothing sexual about it. He just feels he just needs an hour or so every day to play with a ball of wool, dressed as a cat. And he's looking for someone to be a cat sitter. So I was auditioning for the guy and there's nothing sad about it. There was nothing kinky. There was nothing. It was just a story about a guy who is like someone who you know, I don't know, likes to sail boats. You know, someone who you know goes yachting for the weekend. It's his hobby, and this guy's hobby was to dress as a cat. So they wanted me as far as possible to. In the film, he was wearing. I think it was like a rubber suit, latex suit, and a cat mask with ears and a tail. That was all he could get to make himself look like a cat. So I had some black. They were like thermals, black thermals. They were skin thermals.
Yeah.
And I had an old army hat with ear flaps down. And some fluffy gloves, which I think I borrowed from my wife, and I stuck something in my back of these trousers to look like a tail. And I was rolling around on my chaise longue in the lounge, you know, with my wife, bless her heart, Verona, trying to film me without laughing, which most of the time she did. We had to do a couple of takes again because she just fell about, you know. And I own, you know, we do have a couple of cats. So she was getting the cat laser and playing it around, and I was chasing the laser. And yeah, there you go. That was. I mean, I went for all that and I never got the bloody part. But there you go,
mate. just
to let you know.
Obviously, there are mental and mental's the wrong word. There are very unique and unusual scenarios like that where you have to perhaps learn to do something new or embrace some new skills. But it's certainly a huge part of what we do, even if it is growing a moustache. Or I mean, I've seen you fully bearded. I know you're clean shaven at the moment. And in fact, in pretty much every role I've ever worked alongside you in, you've had to be fully clean shaven. But I know that certainly you've done other bits where you've had to have a full beard. And yes, it's not a skill necessarily to grow a beard or grow facial hair, but it is an adjustment you have to make, which makes a big difference in the role itself.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, it's like we were talking about getting on stage and how that changes your performance. Actually, having if you're not used to having, you know, facial hair, which I'm not, I've had a beard occasionally, mostly as it's left over from playing something. I've gone, well, quite like this, I'll keep it, you know, until the wife goes, no, it's going to come off now, because quite sensibly I look ridiculous. So she quite sensibly says, get it off. But I've shaved my head in the past. I played a character while I was ill, and so I took my hair off. But I've grown beards and things, and there is something, you feel physically different, you know. I mean, although you can't see you have a beard or a moustache or no hair, you certainly feel it because people look at you differently. You know, if you've got a beard or a moustache, people do go, oh, that guy's got a beard. They do give you a look. And that's what you want when you play the character. So you want to be different. It is amazing how that little thing can give you a little opening into the character.
Yeah, and I think there's also an element of you. It's not necessarily method acting, but you behave differently to an extent. So to put a bit more context to that, as you well know, and as I'm sure all our listeners know, I was in the Full Monty. I did a production of Full Monty. Do you know, it was around this time, and I'm going to say 6 years ago, because it was definitely an end of March, I think 2015, it might be 7 years ago. I can't remember. Either way, I was in a production of Full Monty, which is a stunning musical, adapted from obviously the original film, but set in America. But I had to spend some of that wearing no clothes or wearing very little clothing. And not before I landed the role, but before we sort of got very heavily into rehearsals, I knew what was involved. I knew what I'd have to be doing. So I made a decision that if I was going to be on stage in front of thousands of people and wearing not very many clothes, I wanted to make sure that I was happy how I looked and that I was proud of my physique. So I did a 12-week intensive fitness thing I had a personal trainer, and I had someone helping me with my diet and stuff like that. So it wasn't something that the production team told me I had to do. It wasn't a requirement. I'd already landed the role. I'd already been cast, but it was something for me that made a huge difference because it helped my confidence on stage. I mean, I'm not a confident person, and particularly when I'm on a stage. I mean, it's an interesting thing. People tend to find actors and creatives very outgoing and confident, but it's all part of the act, isn't it? I would say most,
to a great degree.
Most people in this position actually are quite introverted and actually aren't that outgoing. But when you're hidden behind a character, you're not you. So it's very much, there's almost that buffer, that comfort blanket sort of thing. And albeit, yes, I was playing a character in this, but he was laid bare, if you excuse the play on words. And for me, to feel confident, I had to be happy with how I looked. So yeah, I went on this, I did this specific sort of like training regime, diet regime, all this sort of stuff. And the transformation was quite significant, and I was very pleased with how I ended up looking. It was not easy. I was incredibly hungry a lot of the time because I wasn't eating the volume that I was previously, or certainly the variety of foods, and I'd cut out a lot of the stuff that I really like. So wasn't drinking. Not that I depend on drinking, but we all like a drink now and then. I think,
and it will put the weight on. Yeah, go on. No, I mean, I can understand. You know that takes discipline as well, doesn't it? I mean, you must have been very disciplined to do that.
Yeah, it was not easy, but I had an end goal because I had the show, and I knew when the show was going up, and I knew that it wasn't just a case of I was doing it for me on a personal. It was, I knew, right, I'm about to be in front of people like this, so I want to know that I don't feel uncomfortable doing that, if that makes sense. So I had something to aim for. But yeah, no, it was incredibly difficult. It was very, very difficult to motivate at times. And I mean, you'll hear of people who go on diets and then have sort of like cheat days once a week or whatever. Because I was on a limited amount of time, I allowed myself one cheat day per month rather than per week. So it was very, very demanding. And I didn't end up looking like, I don't know, Hugh Jackman or Henry Cavill or one of these incredibly sculpted, huge, like muscle-bound guys. But how I started and how I ended was so drastically different that it definitely worked. And I've done it not to the same extent, but certainly for photo shoots when I've done some modeling work and various other bits, I've done it before and since. But it's not easy. And I think it's another example that we do at times have to really kind of put the extra effort and go that extra mile for what we want to be doing. Sometimes it might be as simple as just not shaving for a few weeks. Sometimes it might mean having the same food every day and planning your meals in ahead and making sure that you avoid certain foods and certain luxuries and things like that.
More and more often, though, that when you see casting breakdowns, or you get a message from an agent or somebody, and they say, would Sam be prepared to cut their hair, grow a beard, lose a few pounds, or put a few pounds on? You quite often are asked that these days, which is quite interesting. That is more expected of an actor. And I think because of the way things are made, the way films are produced and staged, audiences demand, or not demand, but audiences appreciate the more real that one can get. And I mean, there are very famous, we were chatting about this a little while ago, there are very famous incidences of actors pushing themselves to the limit. I think one of mine, which particularly links to the boxing theme of what we're doing at the moment, is Robert De Niro is famous for, Raging Bull. He played as Jake LaMotta, this incredible boxer, fit as a butcher's dog, as they say, not an ounce of wasted. And then for the last scenes in the play, he piled on the weight to play Jake LaMotta as the stand-up comedian compere.
Yeah,
and it was amazing. And I think it does make you go, that's extraordinary. It's extraordinary because it looks great for the story, but also you kind of appreciate the effort that the actor has gone to make that work. Now, some people may say that's just the vanity of method acting or whatever, but I also think that, that there's no way Robert De Niro could be padded out as much as he likes, but he's still going to have a thin face. He's not going to look like that character in those final scenes that makes you go, that is what Jake LaMotta was like. That is the story,
Well, there are some, as you say, that's a very well-known example. I mean, you've got the likes of Christian Bale, who you compare the size he was in The Machinist to how big he was as Batman, and he doubled, almost tripled in size. They're quite relevant right now. They're in the process of filming Magic Mike 3, I believe. And I'm sure I read some articles or saw something about Channing Tatum saying he finds it incredibly difficult because you have to live such a strict life. It's so heavily regimented that what you have to be doing. Hugh Jackman's another one. I mentioned him a minute ago. He for Les Mis, when he was in the film version of Les Miserables, he did a liquid drain. He went without any kind of liquid, I think, for 48 hours before certain scenes. And it's something that I've actually done to an extent for certain photo shoots before, because what it does is it drains your body of liquid, so your skin almost shrinks and shows off your physique better. It sticks to you, and it's horrible. It really is horrible, and it's highly advised against by sort of medical people, because it can do some serious damage. But you only have to look at how he looked in Les Mis to see how different he was there to how most people know him as this huge bulking Wolverine films in the X-Men films. So there are huge examples of that from just a physical appearance point of view. And it makes an enormous difference. And as you say, some people will perhaps consider it a level of vanity, but I don't know if there's one way to act, is there? That's the thing.
No, I mean, it is using, we are what we are. An actor is just the product. I am the product. I am the tin of baked beans, and if I have to change that to make it, to make my character, the person I'm playing more believable to, the viewing public, and it improves their enjoyment, then that's kind of job done. It's like, I'm no way in comparing myself to a Formula One car, but if you are gonna, you're gonna tune a Formula One car, don't giggle. You're wearing a moustache. You can't laugh. But if you're gonna get that car, you want that car to win that Grand Prix. You're gonna tune it as fine as you can. You're gonna use all the tools you can. So as an actor, if you want to do the best job you can, you're gonna use everything. And if that means losing weight, gaining weight, growing hair, cutting hair, learning other skills, you're gonna do it, because it's kind of, it is your job in a way. It's the job. It's the work we choose to do. There is always that section at the bottom of your CV that says skills, and you put things down that you can do, and then if you can play football or box or whatever, you ride a bike, drive a car, drive a forklift, you can drive it. You can do it. So sometimes you don't have that on your skill base, and you have to learn it. As the boys. Picking up the boxing for Fighting Irish.
Well, I was going to say, there are so many horror stories, aren't there, about people picking up on their CV. And then, I mean, I think it's changed. For example, I know I won't sort of name names or whatever, but I know of someone who was in the original Starlight Express that at audition or when asked, when going through the casting, not at the stage of actually being there, but was asked, "Oh, can you roller skate?" "Oh, yeah. Right, okay. In which case, we'd like to see your client." Obviously, going for an agent. The agent came back and said, "Right, okay, your audition's on this date at blah 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 blah." And the client then went, "Right, okay, well, I better learn to skate." You're like, what?
What?
I mean, it's different now because actually, it's not a requirement before casting, as far as I'm aware. For the for the modern Starlight Express, I believe you go on a training camp before you hit sort of rehearsal stage. I mean, in a way, that's still a gamble because you might find someone who's completely incapable and doesn't matter how long you give them, probably couldn't learn it. But yeah, there are always going to be horror stories of people saying, yeah, I can do that. And then suddenly realizing that actually they really need to be able to do it.
Never put something down that you can't do it. I mean, it happened to me. Because I was asked, I was, it was a long time ago. And I wasn't long out of drama school. And I couldn't drive at that time. This is the whole bit. I couldn't drive, but I got a call from an agent or an agency. And they said to me, "Oh, there's a job. It's just a 1.5 or a morning and an afternoon's filming over 2 days. And it was fairly local. It was down sort of like Brighton on the coast somewhere. And can you drive?" And they said, all you got to do is just drive this car for a short distance, get out, open the door, let the passenger in, close the door, and then pull away. And I was a chauffeur. I had ostensibly, I'm a chauffeur. That was the part. So, but a little bell should have rung in my head, and a little bell didn't. You know, I couldn't drive. I'd driven things, so I legged it home, and got a mate of mine. I said, "Look, let me drive your car. Let me. How do I, So I could pull away from the curb, and they said, "You haven't got, you've only got 50 yards to drive." So I and I was in his, I don't know what it was. I was in his Fiesta or something, and I chugged along the road and went, "Yeah." He went, "Yeah, you're not going to crash anything. You'll be all right." So I got to the film, and they gave me the chauffeur's uniform and everything, and then I walked down to where we were doing this shot, and there was a nice big long sort of driveway that led on to sand on the beach, and my job was to drive onto the beach and pick this sort of floaty loving couple up in all these white sort of he was in a white dinner jacket and she was in a sort of floaty chiffon number, open the car door, drive it, and then sort of pull away down the beach. It's romantic. It's quite sort of comedy dream sequence.
Yeah.
And the car they gave me was a bloody great big white Rolls Royce. No. Mate, I mean, honestly, first of all, they had to put my cushion underneath me because I was too short, which was their fault, not mine. They knew I was 5'6". That's their fault. But then I got in, and it was like, where'd you start? I mean, the steering wheel was the size of a cartwheel, and I'm like this thing, and the guy was going, and they had a guy there, they said, "Well, you've got to do it." And he said, basically, he said, what you can do with a roller, he said, you can let the handbrake off, get it rolling. He said, and it'll kick in if you press the ignition button or something. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, they got me. I mean, God knows how many times I rolled down this into the sand, and then it would took, so I said, "Just reverse it back up, mate." Oh, I don't really want to do that because, I'm grinding the gears. Oh, Christ, Eventually, they cottoned onto the fact that I couldn't really drive. And they said, "Have you driven before?" I went, "Oh, yeah, I've driven. Yeah, driven my dad's car off the driveway, and I had a little go in my mate's Fiesta. I can drive." They went, "No, you can't, can you?" I went. So in the end, they compromised and they put the car on the hard sand and then they had it running. So the camera cuts to these two lovely people running along the beach, and I get out with the engine running, open the door, they jump in the back, close the door, jump in the front seat, and then I literally just very slowly pulled away, and the camera pulls away, and that was it. They didn't exactly get the shot they wanted, And if it had gone any further, I kept the job, you know.
I mean that,
but yeah, never do it. Say you can't do what's on your because that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
I learned to drive shortly after that.
Wow, I think it would have scared me into doing it as well. I mean, we say you never spot anything you can't do. Everyone embellishes their CV. It's almost an unwritten rule, isn't it? That you
tuck something on, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, and let's face it, there are things that you can do or you have done previously that you might not have done for such a long time that actually you'd need a refresher yourself just to get back to the standard that you were once at. I mean, my CV says I've got various different musical certificates, like grades for I played clarinet, saxophone. I've done theory of music, various things like that, classically trained musician, which I absolutely am. But I wouldn't say that I do it at all regularly anymore, in that I am able to pick it up and I'd be at the same level I was when I first was learning and was having lessons every like 2-3 times a week. Doesn't mean I can't do it. I absolutely can do it. I'm a competent musician, but I'm rustier without a little bit of practice than perhaps back 10 years ago when I could have just picked up an instrument and just gone with it. So there's a fine line between the two. However, saying you can drive when you can't drive is probably quite a risk.
I would actually call it stupid, mate. It was bloody stupid.
I was being polite because I call you stupid fairly regularly, so I warranted it this time, or amongst other things. But,
you can have this one. You can have this one, definitely.
Amazing. So what we've learned is that as an actor, as a performer, as a creative, you do take on new things, you learn new things, you embrace new challenges, and you adapt or change yourself, not permanently necessarily, but to suit certain requirements for what you are doing. What we've also learned is you don't lie about being able to do those things before you've learned to do them.
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Yeah.
So I've just got images of you dressed as a cat trying to drive a Rolls Royce now, and that's just gonna stay with me for a long time.
That's gonna stay with you for a long time, buddy. Yes. It really is. Yeah. I've just got you and Hugh Jackman in the gym together, you know.
Well, I mean, that one I wouldn't necessarily question. So
no.
But
neither would your other half, mate, either, would she?
Oh, but yeah. I think if he'd grow a moustache, she'd probably be all right with it. Anyway, enough about moustaches, cats, Rolls Royces, and Hugh Jackman. So it's another silly question. I know what you've got coming up, but how are you feeling about it, or are you looking forward to it, and what sort of setup is there? How is your week actually going to unfold?
We're obviously you'd say we will get into the theatre next week, and I see the week progressing very much that we'll be getting very much used to the space. There's a lot of stuff that we, quite apart from the actual boxing matches itself, it's quite a physical piece. There's a lot happens around the ring and in the boxing ring. And working in the round, it's a very technical discipline. You can't stand on the stage and talk your line, speak a line, because you're facing in just one direction. There are, things around. So we'll all be getting used to that space. And it's a very high space. The B2, which is the smaller theatre at the Belgrade, which is the one that can be in the round. It has banked seating on 3 sides, and they put a false bank of seating on the other side. That they built that, but then you've got another 2. You've got a circle and a balcony above. Wow. So it's very high. So not only are we working all around that level, but we're going to have to work looking up as well. So we will be working around ourselves and above ourselves. So there'll be that whole thing to get used to vocally and physically just getting used to being in the space in a boxing ring. And then obviously then we'll be working with sound and lights, wardrobe, etc., to make everything else work. So it's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be very demanding, but it's going to be very exciting, because I think by the end of the week, we're all just going to be raring to go. It's going to be great. Well, I'm just a very exciting week ahead. So are you, whilst I'm naffing around in a boxing ring, are you going to be taking the moustache for a walk, an airing? Is it going to go out?
So yes, it has a couple more outings coming up. I do have a bit more immersive dinner theatre where it can strut its stuff. That sounds really weird.
That's really weird.
So it will stay for a little while, but it will go eventually. Because I've got that coming up, and actually I've got. I think I mentioned last week I've got this recall audition. It's this weekend. Yeah. It's soon. So everything crossed on that one. Let's hope that the moustache doesn't put them off. But yeah, no. So that's my weekend, or what's left of my weekend is that, and then next week is the immersive shows. So a fairly standard week, I guess, but one that I'm looking forward to nonetheless. And then, of course, next week, not only will you be joined by me and maybe my moustache, but hopefully we'll have someone else with us as well.
Brilliant stuff. We'll have a little guestie with us. Yes.
Because it's been ages since we had one. I mean, it was last week.
Yeah, it was too long. Just us two. We can't have that anymore.
No, people don't want that, especially when I look like this. But anyway, so I shall raise a glass to all of that, mate. I hope you have a cracking week.
Hide the label.
Smooth, Drew. Nicely done. But to all listeners, watchers, thanks very much for joining us, and we shall see you next week with another surprise guest. So have a good one. See you soon.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks again for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then please consider subscribing to our channel, and you'll get notified every time a new video is released. Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app.
Please support us on other social media too. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends, and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.